We start on dot at 4:30.
It's already 4:30. We are live on YouTube also right now. We can go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, Dipankar, I think you can start now. Dipankar.
Yes.
Yes. We start. Have you allowed the participants in?
Already 4:30.
Have we allowed the participants in, Dipankar?
Give me a moment. Yes, go ahead.
Let's start this thing. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Dipanjal Deka. I'm the Honorary Secretary of the Northeast Writers Forum. On behalf of the forum, I'd like to extend a warm welcome to all the dignitaries in the panel and all the participants and members of the forum. In this tumultuous pandemic times, I hope you are all COVID safe and in good health. We from the forum are very happy and privileged to host this webinar with such an array of luminaries in the panel. India is one very vast and diverse country with multiple layers of culture and tradition, which is obviously reflected in its literature. Northeast India has been considered an India within India because of its wide diversity, and within this 8 states, which comprises the Northeast, we have over 350 tribes and sub-tribes and as many languages and culture. We cannot understand each other's language, but we have one binding factor, which unites us rather, and which we can communicate, talk to each other, connect with each other, and that is the English language. This was a founding factor for the Northeast Writers Forum, which was founded by a group of visionary ladies and gentlemen way back in 1996. The forum is one of a kind in India, wherein writers and poets of the 8 states get together and promotes and propagates all kinds of literature in English. It was a wondrous day when the government of Italy initiated the cultural actions program with India. Both the countries are steeped in history, art, literature since ancient times. I believe there cannot be any better 2 countries for such a venture. But like all cultural actions, people must first and foremost understand each other in order to understand, each other's culture. This obstacle can be easily be surmounted by one of the most important aspects of literature, that is translation. Ladies and gentlemen, the topic of today's webinar is translation, which will be conducted by a moderator. And before I hand the proceedings over to her, I'd like to just say a few lines to introduce her and say a few lines about her. The moderator for today is Sarita Dasgupta, who was a teacher and now a writer, whose Rainbow Reader series of English literature and language texts and workbooks has been prescribed text for junior classes in all the schools under the Meghalaya Board of School Education since 2018-19. She had also scripted and directed original plays for children in which she had conveyed the relevant messages through humor, song, and dance. She is also a member of the Indian Council for the Child Welfare and also a UNICEF sponsor. I wish you all the best to all the panelists and a warm welcome to His Excellency. Sarita, I hand over the proceedings to you, for doing the network. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dipanjal. Good afternoon, panelists and all the viewers. Thank you for being here. And before we proceed, I would like to introduce all the panelists. Starting with His Excellency, the Ambassador of Italy in India, Signor Vincenzo Di Luca, who took office in December 2019. And before that, he was the Director General for Cultural and Economic Promotion and Innovation with the Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Then we have Dr. Gianluca Rubagotti, the Italian Consul General in Kolkata. Dr. Rubagotti took office in July 2020 in the midst of the pandemic. He's no stranger to India because he's visited the country twice before. We have Mr. Dhruvo Hazarika, who has retired from a distinguished career in the Indian Administrative Services. He is co-founder and current president of the Northeast Writers Forum. He is an author. He writes short stories, and he's a novelist and award-winning. And we are eagerly awaiting his next collection of short stories called Savage Pen, which is at the moment under publication. Signor Andrea Baldi, the director of the Italian Institute of Culture, could not be here. Unfortunately, he's taken his vaccine today. It clashed with this webinar, but he's very kindly sent a message, which I will ask Shobnath to read later. We have Mitra Pukan, who is also co-founder of the Northeast Writers Forum. She's a novelist, short story writer, columnist. Her column, All Things Considered, in the Assam Tribune is widely read. She's also a classical vocalist. We have Mr. Gautam Ghosh, eminent, renowned, and award-winning filmmaker, who is currently directing the cinematic version of La Storia Di Lala. He, in addition to winning Kalakar Awards, he is the only Indian to have received the Vittoria di Sica Award from Italy. He was awarded the Knighthood of the Star of Italian Solidarity, and he's also got the Bongo Vibhushan for Lifetime Achievement in Film Direction. We have Rashmi Narzari, who's the Joint Secretary of the Northeast Writers Forum. She also is an award-winning children's writer, and she's a translator, and she also is a mentor at creative writing workshops. We have Sergio himself, the
Yes.
author of La Storia Di Lala. Ciao, Sergio. And what a wonderful book, which we are going to be talking about today. And it was translated into English and French, and now Bengali, Punjabi, and of course, very recently, Assamese. I would like to introduce Mr. Shobnath Pine, who was actually instrumental in getting this book translated into Assamese. It was his initiative. And we must congratulate Shobnath on this, getting it done during the pandemic. He is the founder, secretary, and CEO of FREED, which is an NGO, Force for Rural Empowerment and Economic Development. He's been conferred the Knighthood of the Order of the Star of Italy for his promotion of friendship between India and Italy through his many cultural and philanthropic activities. So before we move on to the discussion, I just want to say that Mrs. Sikhi Choudhury, who translated the book and done a wonderful job, as some of our panelists from the Northeast Writers Forum will attest. She could not be here, but then she has sent a message, which I hope I can read out to you. Just take a little time. I think it's important that I read out the translator's message. So she's written, this is Mrs. Sikhi Choudhury, who translated the story of Lala, that is the English translation from that into Assamese, called Lala'r Kahini. I will ask Shobnath when he speaks to show everybody the copy of the book. So Hiki is written, I am not a regular writer and I write only in my mother tongue. So I am grateful to my cousin Padmakshi Patwari and her friend Sarita Dasgupta for believing in my ability to translate an Italian storybook from English to Assamese. I had never translated any work before, so I was hesitant to take up the project. After reading the book, however, I was so amazed and moved by the way a non-Indian author had written the life story of a poor Indian village boy with such compassion. I realized that the Italian author must truly know and love India deeply, or else he would not have been able to describe so realistically the struggles of a poor farmer's village life, the scenes of Banaras, the busy railway station, the grand city of Mumbai, and the daily routines of a fishing village, among so many other vignettes. I developed a great deal of respect for Mr. Scapagnini, and since it was his desire to publish this book in Assamese, I felt it was my social responsibility to turn his desire into reality. So I took up this project and gave it my full attention. Translation is a very big responsibility because one has to accurately express in another language the feelings and emotions of the original work. It is not always easy to find the most fitting word. I managed to translate the book to the best of my abilities, but the true assessment of that lies in the hands of the readers. I offer my sincere admiration and thanks to Mr. Scapagnini for bringing to the young readers a glimpse of the harsh realities of life and a lesson in how determination and hard work can help overcome many obstacles. So that was the translator's message, which I've just...
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, I think, Your Excellency, I just need to go. Your Excellency, I will be, if you could just unmute your...
Mute.
Yeah, okay. Okay. I would like to address the first question to you. Actually, our two countries have been associated for 2000 years because there was this Roman settlement found in this place, Arikamedu, which is about 4 kilometers from Puducherry in South India. It was excavated and found to be 2000 years old. So I think the association between India and Italy goes back 2000 years. And recently, to mark the 700th death anniversary of the great Italian poet Dante Alighieri, you've, I think, started this outreach program, cultural program. I think you inaugurated it in January of this year. And I just want to say that La Storia Di Lala is the story of an Indian boy told by an Italian filmmaker and writer. So the book has already been translated into 2 Indian languages and now the third. What importance does an initiative such as the translation of an Italian children's book into Indian languages hold in the context of your outreach program?
Thank you very much, Madam Dasgupta, and a warm welcome to all the speakers, my friend Sergio Scapagnini, our colleague Gianluca Rubagotti from Kolkata. I'm so happy to join this event. It's an opportunity to present also our cultural activities here in India. You rightly mentioned the intensification of the cultural exchange in the last few years. But this exchange dates back to the Roman period, as you rightly say. It's a long story because Italy and India are 2 cultural superpowers in terms of tradition, in terms of long-standing diversity of culture, languages, religion, and lifestyles. And this means that we have a continuous interaction between the 2 important cultural traditions. And that's why in the last digital summit we had between our 2 prime ministers last 6th of November, we launched for this year an important innovative project that is the Italian Cultural Festival in India and the Indian Cultural Festival in Italy in the same year. What is this festival? This festival is the presentation of the different aspects of Italian culture here in India and the Indian culture in Italy. As far as the Italian festival in India, our focus is Dante Alighieri. We celebrate the 700th anniversary, and we organize a very, very important event in the Jaipur Literature Festival, that is the most important literature festival in the world. A session of this edition has been dedicated to Dante Alighieri, with the participation of scholars from Italy and interaction with the Indian partners. On Dante Alighieri, we have many other events this year. Maybe Andrea Baldi in his video message will mention some of these initiatives. But the concept of this festival is that we would like to present the peculiarity of Italian culture, that is the combination of tradition, of cultural tradition, but also contemporary culture, creativity, innovation. because between Italy and India, not only we have worked during centuries on this interaction, but we are also today we have a very important collaboration in so-called the creative industry, cultural industry, like music, movie, fashion, design. As far as the cultural tradition, we are launching a very important project this year. That is the publication of the best study on Indian culture, so-called the Indology in Italy, starting from the Sanskrit culture, language and tradition and religion, up to the present era. There will be publication with an Indian editor with the presentation of this important project, I repeat, embracing all the aspects of the Indian culture studied in Italy, because Italy has the most advanced tradition of Indology in the world. We have scholars from Italy to Yale University, Cambridge University, Switzerland, Austria. Not many people know about this important knowledge, this important expertise, this important tradition. And this year we will have this publication here in India, in English language, and we will present different aspects of this important cultural tradition, as well as the translation into English of the biography of Tucci, that is one of the most important testimonial in Europe of the Indian and Asian culture and society. So this is a very important year for the cultural exchange. I'm so happy that also this year we have this opportunity to present the work of Sergio Scapagnini. Sergio Scapagnini work, Lala story, is the best example of how much empathy, humanity are in the relation between Italy and India, not as only as government and country, as people to people interaction. This is an example of how the relation between Italian intellectual and artist and cultural representative look at the India, the true India, the human relation Sergio has been able to establish during several travels and presence here in India. So I'm so happy that this work has been now translated also in Assamese, in Bengali, in Punjabi. This is also an example of the linguistic, let's say, relationship between Italy and India, different language in India, and we are very active in promoting also the Italian language here in India. This is also another opportunity for our cultural relation, for our cultural contamination and interaction. And this, I hope, we do hope, and we are working for also the production of a movie based on this story. We discussed this in the last event with the Sikhi frame here in India. We are working with Italian Movie Association, and I hope we can also have the support and the involvement of the Indian authority and Indian movie producer for make this dream. And I personally strongly supporter of this project, and this is also today an opportunity to discuss about this occasion. But of course, today we are discussing about cultural interaction. We have so many speakers here. I'm eager to hear from them, how you see the cultural relation with Italy. How important is this relation between two important cultural powers like India and Italy? Also on heritage, Italy and India have the highest number of UNESCO sites. Also on heritage, we are working, we signed an agreement in the last bilateral summit in protection and promotion of cultural heritage in the two countries, also sharing experience, technology, and know-how. So we have a lot to do together, and today is also another occasion of working together and also promoting such interesting initiative like the promotion of this book and maybe of this book. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Dr. Rubagotti has to leave soon, so I think I will put my question to him next. Dr. Rubagotti, I will just... Dr. Rubagotti, I just want to ask you, you said that given how important art and culture is in both Italy and India, and His Excellency just said the same thing, you were sure that there would be plentiful occasions to collaborate. Now, the northeastern states of India come under your purview as Consul General in Kolkata. So, and they have a rich tradition of diverse culture. So do you have any plans of collaborative ventures with any of these states, like literary or cultural festivals, or maybe exchange programs between students of these states and schools in Italy? Of course, once the pandemic is over, hopefully, God willing.
Thank you for your question. Thank you to the organizers for having me here, and thanks also to the Ambassador of Italy. Yes, as you rightly said, northeastern states of India come under the purview of the Consulate General here in Kolkata, of course, under the general guidance and coordination of the embassy in Delhi. Unfortunately, due to the present situation, it was not possible for me to travel outside Kolkata so far. I know that Assam and the other northeastern states enjoy unique features, even in the variegated Indian panorama, and a level of cultural diversities which is unparalleled. My intention is, as soon as the situation allows, and hopefully together with the ambassador as well, to visit this extremely interesting part of the Indian subcontinent, where I have to be honest, I have never been. I have been to many parts of India, but never to the Northeast, and try to understand what kind of collaborations can be developed together. Because the whole idea is to have a process to grow together, listening to what the needs, the requests, the possibilities are on the ground, and then to work on them, whether it is in terms of participation in literary and cultural festivals, as you said, or in the field of collaborations between universities, because another important focus for us is always youth, trying to give them exposure also to other parts of the world, like Italy. And today we are putting a significant brick in the construction of this building, because here I have the translation into Assamese of Sergio Scapagnini's book that I was gifted so gently. So, you know, that particular part of India has always played a role on the imagination of Italians. If you think of Emilio Salgari, who was one of the most important adventure writers in Italy, he wrote a series of books, 4 of which are set in Assam, and he has never stepped out of Italy. And in the past years, a group of scholars from Italy visited Guwahati, and together with the local professors, they were trying to understand the level of accuracy in the reconstructions by Emilio Salgari of especially the geographical, the naturalistics in terms of flora and fauna. And they came to the conclusion that although he never, I don't want to say he never came to India, but he never stepped out of Italy, he managed to recreate in his novels pretty, how can I say, with a certain adherence to the situation, although he never saw it in person. This is to say that there is also a sort of fascination in the Italian mind from this particular part of India. So they have, I would say, a desire to know each other, this part of India and Italy, to know each other better. And of course, we hope we will be able to accompany this process also in the future.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Rubagotti. Do any of the panelists want to ask or have any comment for Dr. Rubagotti, because he has to leave? So is there anybody who would like to ask him or say something? Otherwise, I'll move on to the next.
I'm very happy that he has mentioned Salgari, one of my favorite writers. And it's really fascinating, his mind, his imagination about the country you never visited. It's really, really fascinating. Absolutely. Thank you very much for mentioning this great author.
Thank you for your comment, Mr. Ghosh. I'll move on to Dhruvo. Dhruvo has read the English translation of La Storia Di Lala, which is, there he's got it, the story of Lala. And Dhruvo told me that he really loved the book. And let me tell you, Dhruvo is not actually a children's writer, but he likes to read children's books. So he really loved this book. So I want to ask Dhruvo, as an accomplished writer yourself, what was it about the story of Lala, about the book, that struck you the most? What drew you to it so strongly?
A very good afternoon to you, Sarita. And before I answer that, please allow me to extend my good wishes to His Excellency Vincenzo Di Luca and to Dr. Gianluca Rugavotti, to Mr. Gautam Ghosh. He's very well known all over the country. To my friend Somnath, and to my fellow panelists here from the North Writers Forum, Mitra and Rashmi, and to all the others. This is the second time actually I come to Mr. Sergio Scapagnini's book. And long years meaning in 2016, we had a gathering, basically, brought about by my friend, now I think in the Foreign Affairs Ministry in Rome, Cesar Belleria. He was the Consul General in Calcutta for the Italian embassy. We struck up a friendship here in Guwahati for his love for books. And thereafter, one thing led to the other, and I came to know some of very fine writers from Italy who had come over, along with the Excellency, the Ambassador then, and the First Secretary. But the Italian connection, of course, goes further beyond for me, in as much as my first school was by my Italian teachers, sisters from Rome, long years back. But coming back to the book, the story of Lala, Sarita, I think, generally it's the fashion to always compliment a book, especially in a webinar. It is a fashion sometimes because one always says good things about books. But let me be, blunt about it. I almost said, let me be honest about it. One has to be honest all the time, I suppose. But one can be, if I may be pardoned saying it, one can be diplomatic sometimes. Maybe it can be diplomatic sometimes, but not in this occasion. Sir, I think you have written a splendid book. Why splendid? Because there are two elements here, Sarita, that strikes one. One is the utter simplicity of the narrative style, which is not easy. Most of us, we complicate our styles, our words with fashionable the fashion. We think that the harder the words, the more complex the sentences, the more grand it is. We go in for some grandiloquence as it is. We want to expose our so-called intellectual understanding of the universe and the human mind. But here is a story Mr. Scapagnini has picked up about a very poor person, or the young boy who's very sympathetic towards his parents, and he wants to leave home, not because he doesn't love them, just precisely because he loves them. That is the irony of the whole thing, which begins that his love for the parents makes him run away from home so that he's a lesser burden. And all along the way, the other thing that Mr. Sergio has done beautifully is the connectivity of the sequences from the ride home in a horse cart to the train. Thereafter, again, meeting this Sultana, the dacoit, whom he could have easily identified, but he didn't. Then over to the sea, Maya and the grandparents, and finally the magic stones. And the culmination was that, I think Mr. Ghosh will be very, I mean, you must have gone through it, Mr. Ghosh. I'm not the film director here, but it is a movie director's delight, I would say. Had I been in Mr. Gautam Ghosh's shoes, I would have probably thought, oh my God, this is something that I've always wanted. Primarily because of the storyline. Secondly, because of the simplicity. And third, because you used one word, Sarita, while quoting Mr. Choudhury, the translator. It's very easy to talk about compassion. It's even easy to practice it, but it is very tough to write about it. So when Mr. Sergio expresses this beautiful compassion in written words, I think he's done a tremendous job. That is my answer, Sarita. I think I've been long enough, but I felt I should tell you what I really felt from my heart. Thank you so much.
Dhruvo, I have one more question for you, and that is, we've all been through this pandemic, and in fact, still going through it. And do you think that you can draw a parallel between Lala's journey and us humanity this year? For example, Lala, he needed courage to face the unknown. For us also, everybody needed courage to face the unknown. It was an unknown quantity, this pandemic. Could you draw a parallel between the two? The two journeys, I would say, or the two experiences.
Yes, Sarita. In fact, now that I come to think about it, there is a character there, Prakash. I think Mr. Sergio,
yes, the friend.
Prakash, his friend, and he says, "Never lose hope. Have courage." I think you remember that passage where before he jumps off the train.
Yes.
And yes, the journey. I think we have 1,030 crore souls in India, and all over the world, 7.50 billion people. I think we all of us ride our individual, journeys of courage. But then with the pandemic, which has taken, which is, it's something that's affected us in a very, it's unique in the sense that it is a common danger for all of mankind.
Exactly.
It's a common danger. We have had individual dangers in our lives. But then apart from the meteor striking the dinosaurs and making them extinct, this is one time when we thought we were going to be extinct, mankind. And that collective fear was a major fear. Now in Lala, the young Lala, imagine his fear. He goes into the unknown. It may not be a disease in the same line as that of the coronavirus, but it's a disease of another sort, which he has to overcome. The disease of his own fear, the disease of poverty, the disease of walking into something about which he knows nothing whatsoever. For example, into the area of fishing, into that tornado, that hurricane where he's almost killed. So these are the issues where one can draw a parallel, Sarita. Definitely, it's not remote at all. There is a parallel, and the other aspect of, or the parallel aspect of the story of Lala is this: that a person who has walked this kind of walked on fire the way Lala has, I think this sort of a person can walk through anything, including the pandemic. I think that is how I can probably sum it up. Thank you so much.
That's so well said, Dhruvo. Thank you. I was also thinking of one more thing, how he had to rely on his absolute belief in his God, Krishna. I think a lot of people during this pandemic held on to that. I don't know if other panelists would agree with me, but like Lala, we all had to hold on to our faith in whoever we believe in. And secondly, I think we all had to rely to some extent on the kindness of strangers, just as Lala did.
Very true.
He was alone, but on the way he met people who helped him. And during this pandemic, I think a lot of people, because of being stuck in a place away from family, I think they also had to rely on the kindness of strangers to some extent. So
There is
that was my thought. I don't know if other panelists would agree with me, and I would ask them to, if they have any comments or if they want to, add something to what Dhruvo said. Any of the panelists?
Sarita, before they say something, I'd just like to add one little
Sure. Of course, Dhruvo. Yeah.
There is Mr. Sergio has brought in a sufficient quotes from the Gita, very relevant portions, if you remember,
Yes.
about courage, about doing one's own duty, and it's beautifully, it's factored in, and that makes the story more compelling, more philosophical.
Yes, actually, that's the thing. This young boy with, he has all these revelations. It's kind of simple in one aspect, and yet it has many layers.
Yes.
So it's a wonderful book, Sergio. It's really, and I think it's nice for you to hear everybody's opinion. And Dhruvo, since you spoke about how it is as filmmakers, you feel if you were a filmmaker, you would love to make this. So since Mr. Ghosh is making the film, I would like to ask him what his experience was. And well, he's also in a way translated from the written word into cinematic form. So Mr. Ghosh, can you tell us what your experience was doing that?
Well,
Sorry.
At the outset, I must congratulate Northeast Writers Forum for organizing this webinar. I congratulate Sergio for this wonderful Assamese version. I really like the sort of introduction of translator, which was inspired by the book. Well, my film on Lala is a long story. And we have been traveling with Lala for many, many years, traveling inside, traveling along with Lala, or his mind, or courage, or his compassion for many years. I actually got the manuscript, which they had shown, a manuscript with a beautiful illustration by his children, long back, I think 22 years back, if I'm not mistaken. And also he was kind enough to present me a copy, a facsimile copy of the book, or the manuscript, for my family. And I found in the book there are certain elements which is very, very important, not only for India, but for our civilization. The core values, respect for elders, compassion for friends, and incredible courage to face life. This I found in millions of Indians. I've been traveling all over the continent for many years, and I found in them that tremendous courage, which I'm sure that Sergio must have seen. I know him because he had traveled in India for many years, and on many occasions he must have gone to Indian villages, cities, small towns, and elsewhere. That's how he could capture the spirit. But what fascinated me to make a film out of it, because there are many stories, but in every story you don't find cinema. Because you need certain elements which triggers you to put something in cinematic time and space, which is very, very important. Cinematic time and space is totally different from our own linear time and space, because it's both linear and cyclic. However, at the end of the book, I found something. It's an epilogue or postscript. Right, it's written that the author met the little boy at Jew Beach, and the whole experience is based on a true story. There I could connect in the epilogue an European man meeting an Indian boy. So there is a very interesting connection between East and the West. Two minds, Sergio must have written the entire story from his point of view, from his sensibility, an European sensibility, but about India. Maybe with certain kind of Catholic morals, you find in this book. That's very interesting, So there, in that moral, he compared a little sort of medallion of Krishna and Christ all together. And then I thought, let me explore the backdrop. And Sergio and one of my producers of this film, Amido, and another friend of mine was just passed away, Jagannath Guha. We tried to explore different areas, in different areas, how we can create a backdrop for the film, a larger sort of, to a larger extent. And that's how, the idea of making a film came up. That I could connect the character Sergio per se, because of course there is a character in the film called Alexandro, but I think that's Sergio in a way. Alexandro and Alexandro meeting Lala, and in the backdrop of with larger context of environmental displacement and also a little bit of human displacement. So then it becomes very interesting because Lala's story is a simple story, but it has many layers, I believe, yes. And one can really learn from his experience of life. So it's not a mere children's book. It's a book for us, especially in this hardcore materialistic world. I think we can learn so many things about, as I said earlier, core values, about sustainable development of life, which we can learn from the tribals, from, suppose in Northeast, I traveled in Northeast, you can learn from the tribals what is life, what is the feeling of a community. It's there also in the book, feeling of a community. And also sustainable living. Sustainable living is most important. Otherwise, we destroy everything. And, at the end of the world. So that's why, I thought it's a great sort of source for a very interesting film, multi-layered film, I would say.
In fact, Lala is, he reminds me of Ulysses, the tenacity to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield. Such a young boy, and it's actually very, very inspiring. And Mr. Ghosh, Roberto Rossellini had made this documentary about India, Matribhumi, way back in 1959. And if I'm not mistaken, I think your film, Sergio's and yours, is it the first Indo-Italian venture? Cinematic venture?
In a way, there was another film made by another Italian director, but it was not an official Indo-Italian venture. But Roberto Rossellini's film was a very important project.
It was.
An Italian great maestro, Roberto Rossellini, on India, because he was fascinated while making the film. He said very interesting things that there are two kinds of civilization, direct civilization and stitched civilization. He said that Indians, they're basically direct civilization, more kind, compassionate, they drift. And ours is stitched civilization, much more materialistic. But now, of course, many parts of India is even more materialistic than Europe. Anyway, but Rossellini's film was a very interesting project and very, very, very important project for an Italian filmmaker. After that, Piero Pasolini, another great filmmaker, he did a kind of a reiki with a camera of, and I was planning a film, but it never happened. Never took place, in reality. I think, this is perhaps the first Indo-Italian co-production officially endorsed by the Italian Ministry of Culture. They loved the story, they loved the script, loved the project. And we almost finished our Italian shoot in 2020 January, and it was a great experience. And now we are waiting to shoot the larger part of the story, almost 70% of the story in India. So I think I've taken up a very responsible project, Indo-Italian project, after many, many years.
So we wish you and Sergio all the best, and we look forward to watching the cinematic translation of Sergio's book. Thank you, Mr. Fish. Talking of translation, now I'd like to ask Mitra, what did you think of Lala'r Kahini? Because you read the Assamese version. So what did you think of it as a translation?
Yes, thank you so much, Sarita, and hello, all participants. It's wonderful being here in such an interesting webinar. So yes, I have read the Assamese translation, and not yet the English version, which I would love to. But a few things I would like to say about the story itself. It strikes a chord. It really does strike a chord. It's positioned as a children's story, and because the protagonist is a child, but like all good children's stories, and Roshmi will bear me out in this, like all good children's stories, you too, Sarita, they have to be universal. They have to appeal across ages. You can't just restrict it and say this is a children's story or this is a children's film. It has to appeal across every strata. And the other thing is that these days, when I was growing up, what was positioned as a children's story, today children are much more mature. They are exposed to so much more. They think in so many different ways. So it is actually a challenge to remain relevant to children universally across boundaries, across ages. And I think this Lala's story in Assamese, Lala'r Kahini, has done this, has achieved this beautifully. It is, first of all, the pace of it. You cannot have a story, whether it is children's or older people, without pace. It has a beautiful pace. Things develop. There is motivation. All the classic requirements, plus so much more, are all there. And of course, the visual aspect, which makes it so suitable for visual translation. It will be a translation. When it is transferred into another medium, it is also a translation. It is, of course, a slice of life, a metaphor for life, as you said, Ulysses, in so many ways. And it is, what I loved is the simplicity. It wasn't complicated, it was simplicity. And yet that goal was there constantly, pursuing that goal and the reason for that goal. And also at the end, I think it's beautifully put, because he has his shop on his shoulders. It is two bundles, and he's happy with that. So happiness comes in so many ways. Happiness for him, and he has achieved what there are bullocks. His father now has a well in his land. The land is freed for himself. They own the land. These are what many would say, these are small ambitions, but they are not small. They are huge for the person concerned, for the community concerned. When a person from a community becomes free of debt, becomes an owner, that is not a small thing. That is a huge thing. And it is through grit and determination that Lala gets this for his family and for himself, and he achieves his own happiness as well. And the other thing that struck me is that even though this is written by a European, there has been a tendency to, exoticize the East and so on, exoticize. There is no element of that whatsoever. There is no exoticization. It is real, completely real. I, as an Indian, can relate to it. And in fact, to come to the translations, Sikhi Choudhury, I'm amazed. I haven't read the original or any of the other translations or even into English, but it reads so well. And I think that is the first test of a good translation. It should read smoothly in the target language, which it does. And I'm sure she has been as faithful as it is possible to be in a translation to the original. Now, as a translation, this has been very interesting for me, which I looked at from a translator's perspective. This is a story about India, which was taken by a non-Indian writer, written in a non-Indian language, then coming back to India through various languages, and then resonating with readers here without a false note. In the Assamese translation that I have gone through, there is no false note whatsoever. It could have been written by one of us, which I don't know if this is. I'm talking of the reality, the way it has been put, and I love the language of the translator. It is readable. It is simple. It is very, very accessible. And she does not kind of make it all very, because it is philosophical. The story is definitely philosophical. It may be through a series of incidents, but it is a philosophical story. She has resisted the impulse to put in high sounding words and so on, which could have been, it could have been a trap into which she could have fallen. But she did not do that. So, and she has actually gone ahead in a very lucid and clear way. And it is wonderful that it will be accessible to children, but it was accessible to a much older or person, to me as well. I did not at any point feel that, oh, this is not relevant to me. So that is, of course, mastery of the writer, but it is also mastery of the translator. So I wish she could have been here so that I could have congratulated her in person, but please do tell her that. And of course, if I may add a little bit about the translation, the first thing about that the translator should do is to get the tone of the story. The tone is very important. First and foremost is the tone. She has got the tone, which I believe must have been there, which is that determination, that non-sentimental. She has resisted the impulse to be. This could have been a very sentimental story, but she has not made it sentimental. She's got that tone. It's almost matter of fact. It's a series of adventures in a way, and yet it has a higher purpose. And there's always this invocation of spirituality and so on. She has resisted, and she's got that tone perfectly, very nicely done, that the tone. And she has not gone into very complex sentences. This is the target audience is primarily a child, the target reader. So she has, it's very easy to get into complex sentences because that's how we write. But she has not. It is a series of very, very simple sentences accessible in Assamese. So yes, these are a few points that I thought about when I was reading it. I was really delighted, especially at the arc of the story, the arc of the way it has gone about a boy from India to other places and come back to India. It's beautiful. It's a metaphor of our times, I would say. how the world is so connected and so on. So it's beautiful.
Actually, Mitra, I'd just like to tell you, I have read, well, not the Italian original, of course,
Yeah.
but I've read the English and the
English.
So I can tell you that, yes, she has kept it absolutely. In fact, you know, I will ask me to read from there later when she speaks. But it's beautifully translated, you know, from the, as you say. And you,
I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is.
You know, you felt it. So she's really done a good job.
I felt it. And it did not read. This is the highest compliment a translator can get. It did not feel like a translation.
And she is a first-time translator. So I think she'll be
I'm
very
amazed.
happy with your analysis.
I'm amazed. Yes.
And I just want to say here that, you know, the Punjabi, Punjabi translation, the Punjabi book has been given to many schools in the rural areas of Punjab. So as you said, you know, it resonates from, I mean, Lala's from central India, but, you know, the children in Punjab, it has resonated with them also. And it's very popular there. Many libraries in the local schools have got it in there, you know. So it's, I hope in Assam, also it will be the same and it will be accessible to a lot of children. And one more thing I wanted to ask you, Mitra. What role does translation play in today's literary scenario? And what are the challenges that translators face? You being a translator yourself.
Yes. So yes, translation. Actually, you know, we don't realize how much works, how many books we are actually reading in translation. Right from the earliest days, you know, War and Peace and Russian writers, European writers, Japanese writers, we forget that they are translations that we have. Our world view is shaped by translations. And by translations, I am not just including, you know, writing, literary. Film, of course, is a translation when you base it on a work, or so many other art forms, music and so on. These are things that expand our worldview, and we are saying so. They have always been important, and now that we are accessing each other's, we know about each other's writings. We know about the art and the writings and the literatures of the various countries around the world. It has become even more important. And the other very good thing is that we have become much more demanding. We are not accepting crude translations anymore. You know, at least in Assamese, till say about 2 decades ago, you know, anything that was anything from Assamese into kind of a basic English so-called translation, that would, you know, people would say, okay, it's a translation. But now we are much more discerning. And we expect translations that can stand on their own, that can stand without the prop, I would say. Well, I mean, that original story, of course, is there, but the translator is a writer in his or her own right. So,
Hello.
And
yeah, sorry, Mitra, we lost you.
No, am I back?
Yeah, you're back.
Yeah, some call had come. Anyway, it is, of course, very important, and it's important also that good translations are made accessible across the world in as many languages as possible. It is a way for understanding each other also.
Yes. Okay, thank you so much, Mitra. And would any of our panelists want to ask Mitra anything or comment on what she's just said? Okay, I think then, thank you, Mitra. I'll just move on to Rashmi. So, Rashmi, you are a children's writer and translator. So, what are your thoughts about the translation of quality books? Now, you've read Sergio's book, and you've just heard everybody else's comments. It is a quality book. And what do you think about the translation of quality books in other languages, foreign languages, into our Indian languages? Children's books. I'm talking about children's books because you're a children's writer, so
okay.
specifically.
Okay. To start with, very cheerful spring wishes to all of you. We have a very vibrant spring here in Assam, and to talk of an Assamese translation right at this point of time is actually so very vibrant in even the field of literature. So yeah, about my thoughts of translation, three thoughts to be precise. One, it is actually more challenging to translate than to write in the original, because what I feel is the translator has to keep the essence of the original work intact. At the same time, he or she has to accommodate the subtle shifts in tones and pictures, just like Mitra Baidu had just mentioned, has to accommodate those shifts, very subtle though, in tones and pictures, as might be required in the target language. So what I feel is you have to be very thorough in the target language, as well as you have to be very sensitive to that language. And secondly, a lot of people feel that very good books translated into local languages might somewhere down the line threaten literature written in local languages, originally written in local languages. But I think, no, it's not that way, because translated works actually open the culture window to other lands. Because I deal mostly with children and children's literature, I like to write for them. I like to read their literature. What is regular and mundane for me might be very fascinating for someone in Italy or elsewhere outside India. And at the same time, what is very mundane and regular for them outside India is very fascinating for me. So that is where the transition comes over. And when a work of someone from outside is being translated into my language, that fascination comes to me while I am still sitting back in my own yard. So this is where I think the three thoughts, I wouldn't like to talk much, elaborate so much in it, but yeah, this is it. And when we talk about what is mundane to me might be fascinating to others, somewhere, however, when it relates to childhood, when it relates to the universality of childhood, there is an overall similarity to it, and that again fascinates children all over. I think, yes, this is it.
Thanks, Rashmi. Can I ask you to read, that passage about the fisherman? It's such a profound thought for a young boy, about the fisherman, which is on page 117 in the English book. And then I would ask you to read the Assamese translation, page 66, if you would.
Sarita had been very kind, giving me the page number and everything even now. But as I read the book, I think this passage really caught my attention. The very intensity of that passage, the very in-depth feelings of that passage, the philosophy in it, more so because it comes from the perspective of a very little boy. So let me just read it out for those who have not had the opportunity and the good fortune of reading the whole book in English. So here I go. On those nights, Lala understood why fishermen are so good, so generous, so honest, so religious. Alone between the sea and the sky, so tiny in that marvelous infinity, without needing to think too much, night after night, they knew better than anybody else that they were part of a great creation. They knew what their place was and how absurd it was to do harm to one another for little everyday matters. And when I read the Assamese translation of this version of this phrase, this paragraph. It sounded so good that, like Baito had once again said, like Mitra Baito had once again said, you can't make out which is the original and which is the translated one. So, Sarita, I'm reading out the Assamese translation now.
Yes, please. Thank you, Rashmi.
Yeah, so here it is. Tenebur rati lalai buji uthile. Masmoria hokal kyo iman bhal, iman udar, iman hot, iman dharmik. বিশাল সাগৰ আৰু আকাশৰ মাজত অকলশৰে থাকিলে এই অনন্ত বিশ্বত নিজৰ উপস্থিতিৰ ক্ষুদ্ৰত্ব ভালকৈ অনুভৱ কৰিব পৰা যায়। ৰাতিৰ পাছত ৰাতি ধৰি এনেদৰে কটালে কোনো গভীৰ চিন্তা নকৰিও আন মানুহতকৈ ভালকৈ উপলব্ধি কৰিব পৰা যায় যে মানুহ সৃষ্টিৰ এক অংশ মাত্ৰ। নিজৰ স্থিতি উপলব্ধি কৰাৰ পাছত ক্ষুদ্ৰ স্বাৰ্থৰ কাৰণে আনৰ অনিষ্ট কৰাটো সম্ভৱ হৈ কোনো মতেই নুঠে। So this is the Assamese version of the passage that I had read in English. So someone who knows both Assamese and who has read the English book as well will be able to connect the two, and you see actually there's no difference. Exactly. Any one of them could be the original, any one of them could be the translated version. Yeah. So
thank you. Thank you so much, Rashmi. Would anyone want to comment or ask Rashmi anything? Thank you, Rashmi. So I'll just move to Shomnath. Shomnath, I just want to ask you first to read out Andrea Baldi's message. I had asked him this question: how do books like La Storia Di Lala play a role in interesting the to inculcating or inspiring the reading habit in children? So I think he's written you a message in answer to that. So if you could read it out.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll thank every one of the esteemed panelists, His Excellency, the Consul General, Dhruvda, Mitra Di, Rashmi, Dipanjan, and of course Sarita and Sergio, Gautamda. All of you, we have come together to celebrate life. Celebrating Lala to me is celebrating life. And before I go into just reading out what Andrea Baldi, who is the director of Institute of Culture, has very kindly sent, I'll just want to say one thing, that since all of us agree that this story is not just a story, this is a belief in humanity, this is a belief in human spirits. And the pandemic has really taught us to be courageous and to take life with the care, with the love for nature, for life, and especially for children. We can all think of doing something so that these Assamese translations become available or can be sort of sent within their reach. I'll try to put this on the web, on the digital platforms. And here I'll just have one comment what His Excellency said, that both Italy and India are cultural superpower. And yes, with the built heritage that we have preserved and the history of our civilizations we are, but I think that both of us, both India and Italy, has been able to maintain the traditional lifestyles and the sustainable way of living, which I think is very important lesson in the times following the pandemic. So thanks all of you once again for supporting our effort. And I'll just read out what Mr. Andrea Baldi has very kindly written. So I think I'm audible.
Yes.
You can hear me? Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Warm greetings to all, and especially to Sergio Scapagnini. Today I should have been with you to talk about young people and reading. Unfortunately, other commitments came up and I could not be there. Nevertheless, I would like to share some ideas that I had steadily jotted down after being invited to the webinar. First of all, let's talk about young people and reading. Reading is an experience that helps us travel everywhere, even to those worlds and realities that do not exist or where we would never be able to go except with the help of our imagination. It allows us to travel without leaving our room. I still remember while studying Japanese, when I first came across the adverb in garnashite. I'm sorry, I don't know Japanese. I might be making a mistake in pronouncing it. This, please excuse. Which means to be able to do something without moving from our place. I found it wonderful because I have always been a person who loves to dream and take flights of fancy. Reading is one of the ways through which this adverb can be embodied. Who among us hasn't come to know other countries just by reading about them and met other societies and cultures thanks to a mind propelled by reading? Reading stimulates the imagination. Fantasy is the vehicle that takes us everywhere through the mind before we have the chance to physically experience new places and situations. Young people must inculcate the habit of letting their imagination take wings and keep it aloft and active because they need to feel a desire to accumulate experiences and novelties, a desire for adventure that must never waver even when the excesses of the imagination eventually lose their wings on colliding with reality. For this reason, it is essential to accustom young people to reading with books that are appropriate for them because they need to dream, to let their imagination grow wings in order to keep hope for the future alive, so that it doesn't get suffocated and they don't withdraw into themselves on when faced with reality of the outside world. They need good books suitable for their ability to understand. They need fiction, of course, but also books that make them reflect, not just escape. And they need something that grounds them in a positive world, makes them learn to love differences and see them as an asset, not a threat. In this way, they will avoid falling victim to violence and self-destruction, and they learn to live with others. Our contemporary world is sliding once again towards intolerance for diversity. We must teach tolerance and respect, indeed, teach love for diversity. If I think back on my life experiences on the path that brought me here to New Delhi, where I have now lived for more than 3 years, and before New Delhi to Rio de Janeiro, Beirut, Tokyo, Istanbul, and Tel Aviv, to name only those places where my stay was longer than a year. I was always driven by a desire to know other countries, other societies, their issues, their heritage, and not just see them as a tourist does. This love for adventure, which is not very common nowadays, perhaps took hold when, as a young boy, I read all of Jules Verne's books, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, Around the World in 80 Days, or Journey to the Center of the Earth. It was as if I were part of those bands of adventurers. And then I moved on to travel books and more to social travel. Well, if I hadn't started reading like this, perhaps I wouldn't be here now talking to you, an Italian who lives and works in New Delhi. I would perhaps be one of the many full of self-pity and regret because I hadn't been able to go beyond the horizon. For this, I think books like Sergio's can play an important role in the growth of young people because it captivates the imagination and introduces them to the life of another young person, Lala, whose life is filled with difficulties, yet he faces it with positivity. And this, in my opinion, is the message that the reader, whether young or old, takes away from reading the book, the difficulties of life and the pain that can come with it. Make sense only if you face and understand life, because it is not so much the experience in itself of pain or of happiness that helps us grow, but the awareness of these states. I wish everyone a good conference and a good session. That's all.
Thank you, Shobnath, and please convey our thanks to Mr. Andrea Baldi.
I will. And if there are any questions also, it can be sent by whatever means, then I can convey it to him and can get an answer and send it to the person asking the question.
Okay, I'll just ask later, because I think I would now like to move to Sergio, who has
Absolutely.
been very patiently waiting and listening. Sergio, thank you so much. And I just want to ask you, in all your travels, you must have met so many people. What was it about Lala that struck you? You know, so maybe appeal to your imagination or to your emotions. What was it about his story that, you know, made you write it? Muted. Sergio, I think you have to unmute. Yes, Sergio, please go ahead.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, thank you, because today I have suffered a little bit with the connection, but it happens. Thanking God we are here. So before answering your beautiful question, I first of all want to thank, of course, the ambassador for the kindness of being here with us, and the organizer, the Northeastern Forum, and my great friend Somnath Pine, and you, Sarita, with whom I remember the marvelous night on the Brahmaputra, when we were singing together Strangers in the Night, while celebrating the great friendship between Italy and Assam through my little book. So thank you to everybody, the panelists, and thanks to my great friend Gautam Ghosh. I should say that the word which has been utilized by the ambassador and by Gautam, reinforced by the concept expressed, I must say, by all the panelists, which were humanity, courage, compassion, are practically reassembling what I felt that marvelous sunset on the Juhu beach when I met Lala. In a way, you are right. I have met so many people during my travels in India, more than 100 times in India with my great joy. And mostly I have met children, by which, as you know now, the only title which accompany my third age is Kaka. So thanking God, along the time, it has been lost, the visitor, the engineer, the producer. But in India, I am for everybody, even in the booking of the hotel, I am Sergio Kaka. So that is my joy, because the children have been my widest interlocutor, meeting, and friends. So many of them had interesting story, but that night, meeting Lala, I felt that probably by the will of God, I had been gifted a story which was reassembling all the things which I believe that are basic for, you know, making of a human life a possibility of a piece of art, which I think is the aim of every human being, to make of your own life a small or big piece of art, whatever it is, but a piece of art. Means to do things which are beyond your limit. And for this, you need courage. First of all, courage. In fact, if you see the fear, which is the contrary of the courage, is exactly our greatest enemy for reaching any kind of goal and for sharing humanity. So when I met this little boy who was telling me with how much courage, that day he saw his father on his knees. He took the decision at once not to turn his head on the other side, as so many unlucky people do when they are in front of a tragedy, but to, in a moment, decide, I will leave everything, my heart, the beautiful bed with my father and my mother, my sister, my place, my village, because I have to be the one who will help his father to buy his piece of land with the shoulder standing and in total dignity. I was moved to a level that that night I had a high fever. So I think that, you know, it happens that when you are totally emotional, you have a kind of movement of blood, Amos Cézanne. And that happened. And I understood that that was the story I was waiting to express to my daughters, the three little ones who at that time were very small, and they saw Papa who was leaving every few weeks to India. And I could not express them what I was going to do, but I thought this story will express them why India is a country where there are marvelous values still in the deep of the heart of India, in the countryside, in the village, thanks to the old wisdom of this marvelous country. So I started telling them the story in the night. It became like a fairy tale, but it was totally true. And one day my wife said, Sergio, why don't you write the story even to remember simply to our family these beautiful nights that were spent together listening to the story of Lala. So I tried, I failed, because when you write, you are always summoned by so many complications of mind, but India came again in help. I came to India after this failed attempt in Italy, and in few visits, I could say in the atmosphere of India, write the book in the small little say places where I was used to be hosted. I remember especially at Sister Battista Place, my spiritual mother, where a small room, like a little cell of a monastery, was hosting me, and I had only a little table, a fan, and you know, a mosquito net on the bed, and I could say stay there in simplicity, and I could write. And I had another great advantage that coming back, my daughters were my editor, because I read them my attempt of expressing in writings, and they were saying, oh, Papa, too many words, too many adjectives, somehow, in their own words. So I had the great gift that the book slowly took its shape, thanks to the editing of the three little ones who had listened, the true story as I brought them at once when I had met Lala, and with all my simple, deep emotion. So that also comes to the point which was saying by Drupa, that of the simplicity. The simplicity, if it is a quality of this book, I have to gift my daughters. It was a gift from their side. So I think that the fact that in the story of Lala, we have the courage to take your action when you are in front of a drama. Or a drama means any moment of life in which you need not to turn your head on the other side. Yes. And then when you are on your way, because of the courage with whom you take the decision to go beyond the border, you never give up. This was the other quality of Lala, which touched me a lot. To me, totally dedicated to the accomplishment of the dream, to never give up. And when you are totally destroyed, if you have a faith to pray your God, as he was gifted of this faith to Krishna or any other God. In fact, Maya is Christian, and they find that Krishna and Christ are very similar, which is also something which I was very happy to express in the book. And looking at life whenever you are in front of a problem with that marvelous attitude, which there is there in Napoli, in all the poor quarters, and was there in the village of India, and he received from his mother. When you are in front of a problem, think that a door closed, but a large door is opening. I think this popular way of saying is the resembling of a wonderful, say, attitude of the simple and poor people, which is the mixture of hope and courage to overcome the problems, and the thing will really solve. So in that way, I thought that these four elements were absolutely creating a story where there were the basic things which could have been important for each and every story of a human being. And probably this is the reason why, after 25 years, when the Italian edition of the book came out, I am here to thank my friends to celebrate that the little Lala, with his bag on his shoulders and his heart still full of dreams, is reaching the marvelous far country of Assam and, bringing his message to the children of this marvelous place, which I had the luck to visit. Thanks again, the participation to the Kaziranga Literary Festival.
Thank you so much, Sergio. And I would request you to please show us the very first copy of the book which you had made for your children, for your family. Could you show that to us, please?
I have everything. I have only to find. So this is the book in the family.
Okay.
And there are all the drawings which they have made and that have been very, very elegantly reproduced, by the Assamese edition. So I am very grateful. For instance, this is the moment when Lala meets Maya.
Yes.
I cry. Ciao, Gautam. When Lala meets Maya on the beach, and this is the expression of a little girl of 9 years, which at that time was Stelina. How, when in the heart it starts love, the nature is corresponding to your sentiment. The beauty of the sun, the beauty of the blue sky and of the sea, that is an example. And another thing which I can show you is that practically I have written the whole book with my Olivetti 22.
Oh.
Which is an historical landmark of every writer in Italy of the 50s, of the 60s. Italo Calvino was writing with, not because I can resemble, but just to say that I am very proud to say that my little book has taken life thanks to an Olivetti 22, letter 1022, the beautiful typing machine. So that was the book which was conceived to remain in the family. Then it became the Italian edition through the courage of a generous Napolitan publisher. And thanks to Gautam, who received this draft in English, it came the Bengali edition, which was, presented at the Calcutta Book Fair, with this beautiful envelope and the presentation of so many friends which rejoined there at the Calcutta Book Fair. And I still thank all my friends who contributed. That was 1999. So you can imagine my emotion that after 22 years, after the Bengali edition, I have received 2 years ago the marvelous Punjabi edition,
okay,
where you have also the beautiful writer. My wife,
yes.
my wife said, Sergio, let me send a photo of yours of 15 years back, because after all, you have to remain there, which takes a photo of 15 years back. So that was a photo of 2005. But anyhow, the beauty of the publisher of the Punjab, that they, my dearest friend Renuka Singh, whom I love deeply, is that they decided also to send a copy of this book in every village of Punjab which they could reach, and to gift by their generosity the library of the little school of the village. Means that now this book is present in a large number of villages of Punjab, and many children, poor children, simple children have read the story. And from the beautiful tam-tam, which I received back from the experience, is that most of them say, my God, if Lala, who was in a poor village like us, did it to make his dream true and to create, this great achievement, we can do, which is my greatest joy and satisfaction, because the spirit of this book, which I try to convey to my daughters first, and now it is going on the little feet of Lala with his back on the shoulders all over India, so in Bengal, in Punjab, in Assam, and God knows where else, is that it is spreading through the youth and also to other people, because also we grown up need to remember that dreams can come true if you have courage, if you have determination. You never give up. Pray your God if you believe in it when you are broken, and if you look to the difficulty thinking a door closed, a larger door open. And that is, you know, my same attitude in also trying to make our film through with the great, you know, will of Gotham was my same attitude in never giving up. And this is our motto. We never give up, we shall overcome, as it is necessary in these days of COVID. And it is also, you said, asking Drupo if we found that there was a kind of a connection with the COVID situation today. What I can say as connection is that we, and now we close with the marvelous edition of our Assamese friend, we say that in COVID, we need a great resistance. We have to never give up. We have to believe in our courage. We have to resist, and we have to know that we shall overcome, because a door is closing, but a larger door of wisdom, of patience, of goodwill, of courage is going to come up for humanity. If we respect the nature, which is the other great message of our film, and which is spread in the book. Lala has all the great civilization of India and of these villages. They love nature. And that is wonderful, and that is necessary today to overcome all our problems. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sergio. And I think I've got my answer. What struck you about Lala was that I think you both believe in never giving in.
Exactly.
I think that is what struck you.
Among his qualities, never.
Yes. And also I wanted to ask you, are you keen to have it translated into other Indian languages?
Well, this is my great hope. You know, I have now all these books collected in my studio, and I dream that when I will be old, so not now, but in another 20, 25 years, I will have a collection where there will be all the languages of India. That will be, you know, my greatest treasure and the greatest symbol of a life which has been dedicated to join humanity with friends, human beings in a country like India, where humanity is a basic value, especially in the deep wisdom of the village people, of the tribals, of the people who still keep those values as very important in life. So we try to conserve these values, to keep them. And for me, as I hope, especially if we make the film, and as I hope the film will be spread out in the world with a call from India for respecting the nature and creating harmony between man and nature, I think other edition may come. I know that there are always some progress in the Marathi version, in the Oriya version, and I hope finally also in the Hindi version, so that little Kaka will have the collection and he will be very serene when he will be a little older in his, third age, which I have not yet reached now. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Sergio.
That's my spirit.
We have... Sorry, yes, go ahead, Sergio.
I wanted only to thank everybody again, that's all, with all my heart and with deep emotion and, the feeling of friendship for all my, people who have been capable to create this little miracle that in a time of COVID, there has been the completing of a dream which started in Guwahati during the Kaziranga Literary Festival. And I thought that because of COVID, it was almost lost. But this proves that nevertheless, COVID, things can progress and dreams can come true.
True. That's, I think, Lala's story and your story and our story in getting the book translated into Assamese. We have a little more time. So if there are any questions from Dipanjal, if there are any questions from the viewers, maybe we can take one or two before we close the session.
Well, hello.
Yes, Mr. Ghosh, you want to say something?
After listening to Sergio and his dream and his courage, it reminds me of a fantastic line from Hemingway. A man can be destroyed but not defeated.
Yes.
I think that's fantastic, and should be the motto of human beings who care for others, who care for nature. And I'm very happy that when Sergio has a dream of collecting books of his writing in different Indian languages. Could be really a bouquet, a real bouquet.
That's a good pun, Mr. Ghosh.
Yes.
Yeah. So would any of the panelists want to say anything before we take any questions? Dhruvo, Mitra, Your Excellency. Yeah, Dhruvo, you want to say something?
Yeah.
Please go ahead, Dhruvo.
Yeah, Sarita, just want to thank everyone and Mr. Sergio, of course, hats off to you, sir. And Kaziranga Literary Festival was in 2016, but we'll make it a Sergio Scapagnini Festival the next time in Guwahati. And
that would be really great.
I'm sure my fellow members in the forum who are listening, as well as those who are not listening, maybe later on we can decide on something. Somnath has always been very kind to us, and His Excellency being present here today, Mr. Ghosh too, have made all the difference, I think. And there's one question from me to Mr. Sergio. Mr. Sergio, who are the writers whom you have generally, taken to, who have been your idols? Well, I have read one or two Italian writers, poets. Umberto Eco is one whom I like very much. Then I've read yours. Then Mr. Foe is there. So would you mind telling us, at least the members present here, who are your writers who look up to, Italian writers?
Thank you for this question. I should say that more than the writers, I have been helped and inspired by the editors. Okay. In fact, I told you about my three little ones, but I cannot forget the great support which I received from the editor of Penguin Book, which is a great lady, Kartika, who gave me the courage to believe in the book, because at that stage I had the small Italian edition, the great friendly Bengali edition, but I thought maybe this is out of the friendship which I receive in Napoli, which I receive in Kolkata, where you know that I am honorary citizen. So I feel at home in Kolkata. But when I met Kartika in New Delhi, in marvelous meetings, I understood that through the judgment of a great editor of Penguin Book, probably something was really there. And I have, completed my consciousness regarding the book. I have worked with Kartika for the English edition, which is as, wonderful as the others. So I am quoting that my great dream, and Kartika is supporting me also in this aspect, is to have other languages. But you can imagine what it means for a poor, stupid guy who has never published a book in his life to become a Penguin Fellow. That, because we are speaking among writers, it's always something extraordinary. And 1 month after this, Kartika called me and said, Sergio, you have also the French edition, which was coming out with Hachette, another miracle. So I would say that the work of the editor is very important for the consciousness of the writer. On the other side, my real, inspiration, as in my feeling, come from an attitude that I have extremely loved reading. If you read a lot, you will be capable to write somehow. And my first great author has been Jules Verne.
Oh, Jules Verne.
I was 12, 13 years old. I escaped to go to school. I told my mother I had a fever. She knew that it was not true, but she knew that skipping school, I was not going only roaming around, as I did sometimes to play football with my friend, but many times I stayed at home to read Jules Verne, whose museum I could visit with Gothamda in Nantes, and was very moving, the Museum of Jules Verne. And, you know, Apollinaire said of Jules Verne, what a writer, no one useless adjective. So Jules Verne, even if it is, you know, popular and a great narrator, had the quality to write in an essential way, which I think has remained in my little personal style, which, you know, is very humble and doesn't make any sense in the history of literature. But if you ask me, I should tell you that my great, say, implicit master has been Jules Verne.
Thank you so much, Sergio. Thank you for your question, Dhruvo. Since Sergio was talking about his editor, Kartika, there's a message from her which I'd like to read out. As Sergio's editor on the English language edition of Lala, I just want to say it's been a delightful session and thank you, Kartika. So there you are, Sergio. You got a message and order from Kartika. I think it's almost time to wind up, but would any of the panelists want to say anything?
Hello, panelists.
Okay, I think then it just rests on me to thank all the panelists, Your Excellency, Dr. Ruba Gotti, Andre by proxy, and Sergio, of course, thank you. And we've all enjoyed reading your book, and we hope it will be translated into many more Indian languages so that you have your little bouquet, as Mr. Ghosh calls it. Mr. Ghosh, thank you for being with us, and we wish you all the best with the film. Dhruvo and Mitra, Rashmi, thank you so much for being with us and for your insights. And Shomnath, thanks to you, we have this session and also the Assamese translation because of your initiative. So thank you. And thank you to the Northeast Writers Forum for hosting this, for presenting it. And I wish everybody a very good evening ahead. It's been a wonderful session. I hope you've enjoyed, all of you have enjoyed it as much as I have. So wishing you all the best. Happy Holi in advance. Be safe. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you so much. In fact, this will be, you know, streamed in YouTube. So the link will be shared. You can, you know, find us on YouTube also. This entire session will be available in YouTube, you know.
Thank you, Dipanjan. Thank you for that. And thank you also for facilitating this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarita. So you actually has been the weaver of the story. You have really nicely brought everyone together on board. And special thanks to the Northeastern Writers Forum and the media team for making this a beautiful webinar.
Yeah, the YouTube link has already been shared in our chat. You know, those who want to, the participants want to, they can see it there. You know, the link is shared in the chat box and everything.
Okay, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Thank you. So bye.
Bye-bye.
Ending the meeting.